Doghouse Racing League is proud to be sponsored by Shoney's. Shoney's is today's all-American kitchen, open daily for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Shoney's guests can count on quality, delicious food along with warm, friendly service. Stop by one of the West Virginia locations to try their freshly prepared legendary breakfast bars. And don't forget to take home a whole strawberry pie. Shoney's, delicious food and friendly service since 1947. Are you looking for sports merchandise for your favorite teams, apparel, jerseys, headwear, hard goods, and looking to be involved with NASCAR? Fanatics is your one-stop shop. Fanatics is partnered up with all major professional sports leagues, as well as hundreds of collegiates and pro teams. Join them now at Fanatics. And if you use the link down below in the description, you'll be able to help out the Doghouse Racing League. While using that link, all commissions go to the Doghouse Racing League, which helps fund prizes and goods for the drivers out on track. Thank you so much for Fanatics, and enjoy the show!
Welcome to Freaky Fast Broadcasting. Tonight, we're here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Road Course, otherwise known as the Roval, as the Shoney's Doghouse Racing League Cup Series takes on the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. And man, what a sight we got on the hands for us tonight, because it's going to be quite the showing here from Doghouse as these drivers take on a road course for the first time in over a year. So it's going to be quite the test for these drivers tonight, as we have 5 races remaining. This is race number, 5 races including tonight. This is race number 10, and we got 4 more after this one to conclude it. So it's going to be a wild finish, I'm sure, underneath our hands. But my name is Zach Hall. Up in the booth with me tonight, we're also going to have Danny Cochran. You heard him up here last week. Danny, welcome back to the booth here at Freaky Fast and Doghouse. We're here at the road course racing in Charlotte. We have these drivers, as you can see, warming here under qualifying conditions. They're already getting at it.
Yeah, and you know, especially to not have a road course race in over a year, it's going to be a really technical and difficult race for some of these guys, because road course racing, you know, even though it involves the oval, it is so much different. It's such a different dynamic than anything else you race in a stock car like this. It's certainly a challenge for a lot of people, just because it presents you with such a different, you know, set of skills than what you have to use on an oval.
No doubt, no doubt. This track definitely one of the tougher road courses, also more technical than most. You know, I like to even say to my friends a few times, this is the Monaco of NASCAR, because you got the walls around each and every corner of this road course. So when things go wrong, they can quickly go to really, really bad. So we'll see how these drivers fare tonight. Warman again, they're going to go around. So it's a tough session there for Warman, who actually was looking to be about mid-pack here tonight, so that was going to be important for him. Now he's going to have to start near the tail of this field, so that's going to be a tough position for him. Right now we're looking, though, at the 35. This is Zach Millett out front, and he's actually got the fastest time right now, so a 1:19.92. He's about 2/10 off of his fastest time here, Danny, but it looks like this second lap, usually in this next-gen car, you get a little bit more heat. It seems to be the faster lap.
Yeah, for sure. And these tires do take some time to warm up, one thing I've found with my experience in these cars. Because if you try and go after it on that first lap, it's just like you're driving on ice blocks. And it's just really hard to find grip, really hard to make time in the corners. So just try to be patient, let the car come to you, use that second lap to your advantage. I think it's going to be a big key here in seeing who sets down the fastest time in this qualifying session.
And it will be. You see the usage of the curbs, very important also to do. And a pickup on the second lap there for Zach Milley. He'll stay at the top of the board. Right now, we have our points leader, Brandon 6. We'll look at those points later during our warm-up and see as that points leader. Like I said, he's jumped up to second on the board with his first lap. We'll see if he can find a pickup, because a 19:087 was his fastest lap in practice, so he had a quite sizable margin there. So we'll see if that pickup comes in. I can tell you, he's actually going through the final chicane now as we check out last week's winner, Tyler Millett, going through turns 1 and 2 of the oval. And as I say that, Brandon 6 immediately jumps to the top of the board.
Yeah, you mentioned Tyler Millett there, seeing him on screen now. How cool to see him get his first win last week in such spectacular fashion. I mean, that was just an awesome last 10 or so laps to watch under green, watching him bring that thing home and fight off traffic charging behind him. Tyler done an awesome job. Had a blast interviewing him after the race, and hearing him kind of walk us through how he got that done. So hoping to see another outstanding performance from him here tonight.
It would be definitely an excellent way to carry that momentum over for that driver of the 94 machine as he goes through the final chicane here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. He's going to jump himself up to, it looks like at the moment, 8th on the board, as Jonathan Smith took the 7th place position there for a moment, as times are very close throughout that midfield. And that's kind of what you see a lot of times at these road courses. You'll have a few drivers that really stand out from each other, and then you'll have that mid-pack of the field where it is just a brawl and a battle in the mid-pack.
Yeah, and back there in the mid-pack, it's going to look like a hornet's nest all night long. In the sense that all these guys are going to be on top of each other, really similar lap times being turned, and all of them are going to be jockeying as much as they can for the extra spot or two, because that makes the difference, Zach. I mean, in a season-long points format, you can't just look at wins. You got to look at the bigger picture and say, okay, maybe I can't win this week, but I have to collect as many points as I can to set myself up for the later part of this season.
That's exactly right, Danny. And I think that's another thing, is we live in a day and age of playoffs and all these things about getting to that final race and winning. Not here at Doghouse. Like you said, it's a full season standings, folks. So that means that these drivers equally weigh every single race. So tonight matters just as much as the previous week, and the same as the next week. And preferably as an old school person, I actually really like to see that. So these guys have definitely got it all figured out there. Brandon Six again leading those points, also topping the board at the moment. But again, road courses is not a familiar scene we've seen here at Doghouse in the past from their history. Again, they have went to 4 road course races in the past, twice to Watkins Glen, once to Dakota, and one other time to Road America. And it looks like Jonathan Jennings also was the winner of all 4 of those races, and he won't be joining us tonight. So tonight we will get a first. We'll get a first new road course race winner here at the Doghouse Racing League.
Yeah, and one thing I love about road course racing, Zach, is you get to see different drivers flex their muscles. I mean, maybe not everybody is, the best oval racer, but this is, the time you get to see guys who aren't traditionally at the front kind of get to show off their skill set and prove that they're every bit as good, as the guys who went on ovals regularly, just maybe in a different discipline. It's like, for example, Zach Millette on the board in second right now, less than half a second off Brandon Six. It's really cool to see somebody like that who we haven't seen battle for the win every single week, on the ovals. Get to see him kind of show what he's got here on a road course.
It is definitely good to see that. Yeah, he's been a driver that's shown those glimpses, and tonight could be another glimpse of greatness from the 35 team. Looks like we got about a minute 45 here to go in qualifying. The only driver that personally is out there on the racetrack is Millet, and he's just running extra laps. So it's nobody at the moment qualifying. Everybody still you have to take times, and personally with only a minute 30 to go, Danny, they're not going to get back around in time to get a time even in. So right now, pretty much the way qualifying stands, it's going to be this way. So it looks like Brandon Six will have that pole position and hold on to it. But some definite big names that made some splashes here. I mean, Justin McMahon, our winner from earlier in this season at Rockingham, he's all the way up to 3rd on the board. A big pickup from practice. He was a 20.96 to a 20.51 in qualifying. So great job from McMahon. He's going to start up in that 3rd position.
Yeah, and you'll see that a lot on road courses. These guys, sometimes it just clicks, and it might take a little bit. It might be 55 minutes into your hour-long practice session before the race, but eventually, for a lot of these guys, it will kind of come together, and you'll start to say, okay, well, this is how I take that corner. I should be in this gear here. Or, just the small details start to come together, and it's nice to see that for somebody like Justin McMahon, who, I'm really looking forward to see, potentially, I don't want to jinx him, get too ahead of myself, but have a good run here at the Roval tonight.
Definitely can be a place you could jinx people. Disaster waits around every single corner here, folks. The curbs, everything is going to be used up here tonight. And also, most importantly, those drivers are going to be worn out. This is one of those physical racetracks when it comes to sim racing. You got to really be utilizing those curbs, like I said, and hopping those things. So we'll see how it all plays out. The final 10 seconds is going to click away from qualifying, and it looks like Brandon Six again will take that pole position. We're going to go into a 5-minute warm-up here, and while we do our warm-up, we're going to pull up some of our things from this season. The first thing we're going to pull up is the point standings, because guess what? It's coming down to the critical point of the season. After tonight, 4 races left. It is going to be very, very close when it comes down to the end of this. Brandon Six, like we said, the current pole setter of the night's race, he's sitting atop those standings. But Brandon Bowie, 128 points back. It was 128 the week before that. So those two went dead even last week at Kansas. So that was kind of a nullifying thing for both of them. But Bowie's still in striking distance with this Winston Cup point format. You can gain tons, lose a ton of points also. But as you can see, as we look down farther through the list, Danny, it's definitely a close battle for some of those top 5 positions and even getting into position to fight Brandon Six for that championship.
Yeah, and for Brandon Bowie, I mean, the first thing you got to do in order to start closing your gap to the point leader is stop the bleeding. We've seen Brandon Six throughout the season put on this point lead, and for Brandon Bowie's sake, maybe now he's got to a point where he can kind of start to pull him back. We can kind of start to see him start closing that deficit into these final 5 races here. And, I mean, it could be tonight, Zach. It could be tonight where we start to see him really start to pull that deficit back and maybe give us a good show for the title fight going into these final 5 races.
It's very possible tonight could be the big opportunity on schedule. Talking about schedule, let's go ahead and check out our remaining schedule here at the Doghouse Racing League. It is going to be quite the finish. I think tonight's season is the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, of course, tonight. Then we head to Talladega after a 2-week break here off, and then we head to Las Vegas with Phoenix and Homestead to close it out. Quite the list of races there, Danny. I think some good races for these drivers to battle it out for.
Oh, I tell you what, I'm a big fan of Homestead in any kind of vehicle, but especially these next-gen cars. They put on such a show at that track, Zach. It's always it's a fun time watching them work the multi-grooves that are available to them there. And I think there's no better track available to have a finale at than Homestead. But, you see Talladega on the schedule there as well. It's we certainly could see a wild card winner there. You never know what's going to happen when you go to a plate track, especially a place like Talladega, man. It's just untelling what you're going to see unfold before you're there.
That is for sure, Danny. Everybody need to tune into that to make sure you see how it all plays out right here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. And as we pull down our schedule, we're going to give some shout-outs here to all the sponsors who help make happen here at the Doghouse Racing League. There's so many supporters and so many people who put their hand into this thing. So first, we'll start off with the title sponsor here, and that's going to be Shoney's. The Doghouse Racing League is proud to be sponsored by Shoney's. Shoney's is today's all-American kitchen, open daily for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Shoney's guests can count on quality, delicious food, along with warm, friendly service. Stop by one of their West Virginia locations to try their freshly prepared, legendary breakfast bar. And don't forget to take home a whole strawberry pie. Shoney's delicious food and friendly service since 1947. So again, thank you to Shoney's for being the title sponsor here at Doghouse. We also got some other great sponsors such as True Patriot and Apparel Gifts. They love to create designs that allow you to show off your personality, whether with a little humor or sarcasm. You can create or check out their t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, stickers, hats, and much more at TruePatriotShopUSA.com. So use code Doghouse10 at checkout to receive 10% off of your order, and check them out because they got some great stuff over there at True Patriot Apparel and Gifts. Also, shout out to SSR Designs. If you're looking to take care of your car or your iRacing paint schemes to the next level, look no further than SSR Designs. With the passion of creating custom paint schemes that are unique, we specialize in tuning your vision into reality. Whether you want to stand out on the track or simply if they want a kind of look of your ride, we've got you covered. You can contact SSR Designs today via Facebook to discuss your project and let them bring your ideas to life. Also, huge shout out to buttkicker.com, feel what you've been missing, and also to Nap Daddy Racing Designs for help support the Doghouse Racing League. So again, thank you to all those sponsors. It's going to be a great night here at the Charlotte Roval. Danny, we got 45 seconds before we grid these cars up. How you feeling, or any final thoughts before we start the grid?
I'm looking forward to a good show here. Watching these guys try and navigate this course, it doesn't do it justice watching them broadcast, just how tricky this place is to navigate, right? I mean, I do my fair share of iRacing, and it never looks as difficult from outside the car as it is inside the car, because every time I race here, it ends with me being sweaty and just really tired after one of these races. There's so many technical corners that you either have to slow down a bunch for, you really got to fight the car through them, back in wanting to come around. So I'm really looking forward to see how they navigate this, man. It's a very, like I said, technical, difficult track to navigate. So What I'm really looking forward to seeing them take this place on here as we got the warm-up ending and getting ready to go through our qualifying grid.
That we are getting ready to head to that qualifying grid as the warm-up comes to a conclusion. Timers click away. It's race time, folks. The nerves are starting to kick in. The grid is near, and that is when the drivers' hearts will start to ramp up and pound just that little bit more. But as the drivers start to grid up on the field, we'll go ahead and pull that grid on up so you can see where your favorite drivers will be starting tonight's race from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Starting on pole position is the 06 of Brandon 6, the points leader heading into tonight, and he's looking to have a strong showing here in the final 5 races. Second alongside him is going to be Zach Millett in the 35 machine. Third is going to be Rockingham winner in the 24, Justin McMahon, alongside him in the 98. In fourth position is going to be Jamie Horn. Fifth in qualifying is going to go to Steven Bonomo, with Jeremiah Stutzman bringing home the 6th position here in qualifying to start tonight. 7th is going to go to the 23 of Jonathan Smith, with 8th going to Eric Warman. 9th is going to go to Tyler Millett, last week's winner from Kansas, and rounding out our top 10 is the 7 car of Gary Arnold.
Going to P11, we've got Eric Anderson in the 43, followed by Brandon Bowie in the 54, who we saw have a really strong run last week. Brian Dixon in the 03 starting 13th. To his outside will be Christopher Simon in the 27, starting 14th. 15th will be Christopher Powell in the 93. 16th is Martin DeMont in the 14. 17th in the 17 is Richard Leclerc. 18th is Christopher Leftwich in the number 8. He had a rough race last week. Hated to see that for him. Had a really strong showing, but just didn't have all the luck that he needed. 19th is Bill Gentry in the number 4, and 20 is the 60 car of Mike Leftwich.
That was your starting grid here tonight from the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. 20 cars taking to the racetrack. We'll see how they can attack this 2.28 12-turn road course. And again, this is also not the current version of the Roval you've seen, just recently with the NASCAR Cup Series. We still are racing on the previous version from a year ago, so we don't have that newer version, so these drivers will still be tackling that corner that goes through that up and downhill section. So a little bit of a different look here from what you may have seen on your TVs from before, but still quite the show I think we're going to get here, because it's going to be heart pounding from the start. And that's, I think, the reason why they call it also the heartburn turn they used to down there in turn 110, because on that first start of the race, it's always a little bit of a nerve-wracking moment, a sigh of relief if you can just make it through that first corner.
Yeah, and one thing a lot of people don't understand is, just watching it, the brakes are cold and the tires are cold. That's two things that kind of work together as a recipe for disaster into that first corner. And really any of these corners in the first couple of laps and everybody's on top of each other. It certainly provides for some entertaining racing, but nothing short of nerve-wracking from inside the car. So going down to that first corner, it will be, I think you'll see these guys, on edge, tensed up, just hoping to kind of make it through it with a clean car and not destroy yourself too much before you even really get your race started.
It's going to be a race of attrition, always is here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, as these drivers pace down the back straightaway towards the back straightaway chicane. I'm sure everybody's starting to ramp up just that little bit, as Brandon 6 on pole position, looking to build on that points gap. Teammate Brandon Bowie second in points. He's starting back in 12th. Big thing also to focus on here, Doghouse, no stage points. So Bowie's starting that far back. It does not mean he's in a hole. He has 55 laps to climb out of there, and you never know, a mistake could be right around the corner for one of these leaders up front, and Bowie could definitely be a driver taking advantage of it. I think he'll be one to watch out for. Of course, not qualifying and starting out back, but it's going to be a wild start here as the pace car gets closer and near to the end of pit road. We're going to see how tonight's 55 laps unfold here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. It's Freaky Fast broadcasting in the Doghouse Racing League. We head down to the final chicane, in control with Brandon 6. Now we're going to wait for the green flag from the flagman. There it is. Green flag is in the air, and 6 is going to take off heading down to turn 1. But Millett alongside, side by side, as they race into the corner. But it's going to be the 06 who's going to clear ahead.
And we see the top 4 drivers get a great launch compared to the rest of the field, as they're still 2 by 2 by 2 all the way throughout, trying to get sorted as they go through the first set of corners. And we have a spin in the S's, Zach.
That we do. We had a spin also with Jonathan Smith farther back in turn 1, but I think the driver that went around the S's, that is going to be the 24 of Justin McMahon. So tough break for him, and also others, the 9 of Bonomo. So we had 3 cars go around this first lap as the 2 leaders try to get away as Jamie Horn up to the top 3 in the start.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying before this race started. Those cold tires and cold brakes, they will bite you. As we see them working on to the first oval bank corner of this 12-corner racetrack layout, as we see Brandon 6 getting a comfortable gap over second place Zach Millette. As these top 3 cars, they've completely checked out from the rest of the field. They're side-by-side battling for 4th, but, you know, behind that, and it just goes to show how fast you get separated here at this at these road courses. You know, it doesn't take long. The first few laps are nerve-wracking, but you can get sorted out and separated pretty fast here. As we've got the 94 of Tyler Millette, looks like he missed that chicane. He's going to have to serve a slowdown as they come through the bank corners of 3 and 4.
That is a tough break for Tyler Millette there. Like you said, misses the back straightaway chicane. Going to have to take that slowdown and lose multiple spots. So Millette goes from qualifying 9th back to the 13th position here as they go to the final chicane. Looks like a few other drivers having some mistake. Eric Anderson, you see, he's got, I believe, Christopher Simon, who was locking up in front of him, having issues. So multiple drivers having issues. If anything, it tells you how much issues there was. Brandon Bowie from 13th or 12th in the qualifying grid. He's up to 4th and 8 seconds by the leaders. Millette goes around with the 03 here. So this is just breaking down right in front of us as the drivers are trying to hold on. The grip is just not there.
No, it's not, and it's, you know, I don't know if it's a track condition issue or, you know, just a matter of maybe overheating your tires, but hate to see that for last week's winner of Tyler Millette coming off a really strong performance at Kansas. So he's got some battling to do to try and dig himself back out of this hole he's created for himself on only the second lap. So as we see him continue to battle with the 0-3, that of Brian Dixon. So yeah, he's got some ground to make up here, and it's going to be a long night for him to try and dig back out of that hole.
That it is, and that's the big thing I think too, Danny, is when you road course race folks out there, you got the green flag dropping and it goes all the way to the end. You do not get a yellow flag to bring the field back together. If you're someone like, you know, a Tyler Millette who's had those issues, you're already 27, almost 30 seconds off of our leader, Brandon 6, in the matter of 2 laps around this racetrack. That just shows you how much things can break down, and that's going to be something that he's got to deal with the whole race. It's not going to get evaporated due to a yellow flag, and how can that change a driver's mindset a little bit, Danny, when you don't have those yellow flags to kind of bring you back in, knowing that a mistake can be something that hurts you all the way to the end? Is now Millette going to take his chances on the 03 here?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that weighs on your mind pretty heavy, as it looks like he's going to get clear of him down through this first corner as he does get 1 spot back. But yeah, as a driver, that's really, really taxing on your mind because, you know, it's not that long of a race. It's only 55 laps, which that's not to say it's a short race as we see more issues for the 23 of Jonathan Smith. But, you know, 55 laps, it's very wearing as far as your energy goes, because, you know, it's very taxing on just your mind and your body because of all the inputs. But it's not that long on the track. You don't have all the time in the world that you need to be able to dig yourself out of this hole and pick up the spots that you need to, you know, close on Brandon 6 in the point standings or whoever the point leader may be.
That it is. It's very tough to do as now we're watching McMahon here in the 24. He's back up to the 9th position. He's trying to recover. He had a spin down in the turn 3 and 4 section of the track after Bonomo went around. So, you know, trying to make a recovery here, and McMahon got a good group of cars right ahead of him.
Yeah, and you know, you hated to see that for him. He started in the top 3, and he looked to be a really strong performance, and he still could come back and have a great performance. But, you know, anytime you have a good qualifying run and you kind of put yourself in a hole because of a mistake that you made, it's hard not to beat yourself up over it and work to get back what you've lost. But he's doing a pretty good job of working this traffic and kind of biding his time, just working through it slowly as we see some side-by-side, maybe 3-wide action, as it kind of looked like he was going to look to the inside of Christopher Leftwich there.
Let's say both Leftwich and McMahon get the 2-for-1 deal on there on Jeremiah Stutzman. So Stutzman going to lose out 2 spots. Those 2 up both the position here, as this corner so important to get set up for a pass. And McMahon look much tighter on the apex, and look here, he's got a great run. He might have an opportunity to look here down into this final chicane, and this is one of the best passing opportunities you're going to have all night. We'll see if he takes that chance, or does the 8 too deep into the corner, into the back of Warman, and the 24 are going to just pick up the pieces here and get 2 for 1.
That's exactly what the 24 needed right there. Taking advantage of a mistake in front of him. Don't know if he put pressure on that 8 and caused him to get into that braking zone a little bit too hot, or just, not paying close enough attention. But if you're the 24, that's what you need to happen. Instead of taking, a lap or two to pass those guys, he was able to get both of them in a single set of corners. So playing perfectly into his handbook for the 24, as we can see him continue to climb back up. He's back now to only 3 spots down from where he started the night.
That's exactly right, Danny. Yeah, he's done a great job to climb back through and very patient, letting the mistakes happen ahead of him, and sometimes how you have to play out with racing. Some of the closest battles we've got right now on track would be the 27 of Christopher Simon. He's actually battling for the top 10 position. He's got the 7 of Armio directly ahead of him, and these two right now about 33 seconds off our leader of Brandon 6, but the battle is definitely heating up with these two. We've seen Simon have a big lockup in the final chicane not too long ago. Armio, just a few moments ago, had a big mistake, and also right ahead of him, the 31 of Warman, he had a mistake, so he's going to be right in the mix of this battle too now.
Yeah, I really got a feel for the 31 of Eric Warman right now. He's his night's kind of going from bad to worse as he's just having incident after incident going through these first 5 laps. It's going to be a long night whenever you're having some bad luck fall your way only in the first handful of laps here. As we're back to the point where the last lap he was kind of shipped into this corner, into this set of corners by the 8 as the 7 and the 27 of Gary Armio and Christopher Simon continue to close in on him.
Great battles here. And this is what it's all about, limiting mistakes, and I think a lot of these drivers are going to come out here tonight and say, man, what could have been with a few less mistakes? But again, that's sometimes the beauty of road course racing, especially for the drivers who, kind of come in here and just kind of try to make it a survival race. It's sometimes, a lot of times, you can surprise yourself. You could be a driver that has, a tough time getting around a road course, but if you keep it on, all fours and you get around this track and you keep it out of the wall, you can make really things out of nothing here. So I think a lot of drivers you're going to see make some surprising finishes by the end. But right here we're looking at Jamie Horn. He's in the 4th position, and just that last lap was passed by Brandon Bowie. So Horn dropping back here to 4th, but he's got a pretty sizable gap, about 11 seconds back to the next car, the 93 Kevin Powell in the top 5.
Yeah, back to what you said about Brandon Bowie. In case you don't remember, he started outside the top 10, and now he finds himself on the podium, right? We're only 6 laps into this thing. I wouldn't rule out a stronger running from him here tonight, as, he is 10 seconds off the lead, but he has worked his way up to that 3rd position, and he doesn't really show signs of slowing down, so it'd be interesting to see what he might bring to this race here.
It's going to be very, very interesting in my opinion, Danny, for sure, because right now, looking at it pace-wise, he is about a half a second quicker than our 2nd place driver, Zach Miller. So that tells me, a half second here, he's 5.5 back. We could get a battle between these two in about 10, 15 laps from now. So that's definitely could heat up if that pace and that trend continues. Right now, Brandon 6 about a half a second quicker than anybody on the track too. So Brandon 6 continuing to open up the gap he's ran. He's pretty much consistently ran 19.5. So literally last lap by was his quickest time. So he's continuing to find speed while others out there are just trying to find their feeding on this racetrack.
Yeah, and credit where it's due to 6 and the 0.6. It is so tough to even put down a consistent lap time on a road course. You have 12 corners that you got to hit the same over and over again, and for him, he's got to hit them the same and be fast. So watching him as he works around this course down into turn 1, really interesting to see how he's approaching every single one of these corners to make the absolute most time possible as we see him work up the hill and down through these S's here. It's really something to watch these guys who have good handle on these cars and kind of understand what they're going to do. And as a driver, the next-gen cars are so unpredictable on iRacing that you just can't tell when they're going to hold grip, when they're going to lose it. And to be able to make time that's half a second faster than the rest of the pack over and over again is really a testament to how well of a handle he has on these cars.
And, I talked about how his lap before was his fastest lap. Well, he won up that as well. That's a mistake he can't make too many times there, though. You see him touch that wall there on that corner entry and exit of that complex there before you get back into the oval. That is a place you can break toe links and bend them, and that can cause huge handling issues. So the 06 here is not, in the clear. He is definitely by far, when it comes to speed, he has got that for sure over the rest of the field. And I tell you, it just takes one mistake though, Danny. You can have speed sometimes at road courses, but all it takes is that one mistake, and it can end your night before you know it.
Yeah, and we've seen it all too many times, especially with these cars, you know. The bodies, they're built like tanks, but the suspension and the steering, it doesn't take a lot to knock your steering out of alignment and just cost yourself either a ton of time because it won't handle properly, or your race altogether because it can do enough damage to where you can't even get around the track. You know, you have to take it to pit road, get it fixed, which can cost yourself minutes upon minutes, which is several laps or maybe your entire race that's lost because of it. So, you know, he's got a comfortable lead. There's no reason to push an issue too much right now for that 0-6. He's just got to put down consistent times and just, you know, at least match what the guys behind him are doing. That's all he's got to do right now. But it looks like we have a great battle setting up for around the 11th spot, because we've got 4 cars here, Zach, that are kind of under a blanket.
That we do. Bonomo right now leading that train of cars in the 9 machine as they come into the final chicane. And it's right behind this grouping that we're looking at right now is actually Bonomo leading that group with Eric Anderson, Christopher Simon, Tyler Millette. And like you said, I mean, it's literally 4 cars right here in a train that all could be looking to make up spots or lose spots, vice versa.
Yeah, and that's one thing, especially on road courses, that I struggle with myself, is not over pushing the car when you're in traffic, because you get around other guys, you're trying to get all that you can, you see those passing opportunities in front of you, or maybe you're Steve Bonomo who sees those guys closing in on you, so you gotta want to push that extra little bit more, and sometimes you can kind of overstep your boundaries a little bit, and it'll put you in a really bad spot really fast.
That will be. It's very easy to overstep those boundaries. You see those drivers pushing the limits here out here on the exit. Ooh, Simon, I don't know if he made contact, but that angle looked like it was going to be close, and can confirm no contact. So great job by Christopher Simon there, navigating that with a little bit of the angle not looking in his favor as that group continues to battle it up. The rest of the field is trying to just gather it up right now, as it looks like the other closest battle we got is Jeremiah Stutzman in the 7th position with Eric Warman. So we saw that before, as Stutzman has kind of closed that gap down and made a few mistakes to allow Warman back by.
And speaking of Warman, it's been fun to watch him make this recovery in these the second 5 laps. The first 5 didn't start out so hot for him, but now he's worked his way up to the 7th position, actually 1 spot ahead of where he qualified in this race. So being able to watch him make his way back up and possibly, you know, run for a top 5 as we see him lock up a little bit there, but he's recovered very well, and I'm looking forward to see how he recovers through the rest of this race. I was talking to him after the race last week in his interview. He was just very thankful, you know, for the run he got to have last week. So I'd love for his sake to be able to watch him kind of, you know, follow that up with another top 5 performance here as we go back to the 22 of Jeremiah Stutzman.
Stutzman still trying to keep that gap within reachable distance for himself and keep that position that close. As Warman has definitely done a good job. We saw him make those mistakes also in qualifying, so great job from that 31 to do that. But we're also looking at another driver who's done a really great job right now, kind of in no man's land. He's about 14 seconds off of Jamie Horn in the 98, but about 6, almost 7 seconds ahead of Justin McMahon. So right now, Kevin Powell, all by his lone small racetrack, but having a great run right now, top 5, and being very, very consistent when it comes to lap times.
Yeah, and you know, as a driver, I don't mind being in that spot, kind of in no man's land on a road course. That's when a lot of times I'll turn on some music, just, you know, work away at these laps and just kind of, you know, log them and try and figure out what I'm doing wrong, what I can do a little bit better, and just being careful not to overstep the car when I do it. But, you know, just kind of enjoy the drive. That's one thing I don't see enough drivers do on this service, is just have fun with it and use the opportunity to learn. You know, some might say, oh, it's boring not battling other drivers, but, you know, for me, you can be in a spot where, you know, you get away from everybody. You can just kind of work to learn the track, work to race the track, because that's when you learn the most. When you're racing other cars, it's very easy to get caught up in what you're doing and make mistakes, but when you're just racing the track, that's when you figure out how to really make time and become faster.
I love that assessment there, Danny. That's definitely a great way to be putting in, and I can tell you what, this is great right here. Gary Armio, he's starting to slip back a little bit. Bonomo's within a half a second of him, so guess what? That battle we had from 11th back to 14th, it's now from 10th to 14th. So we got a 5-car battle here now. So this is definitely great action throughout this field here, as Armio going to be, I think, in trouble here because Bonomo right now showing some really strong pace, and not surprised too much by that. Bonomo qualified 5th, had that early spin there coming out of turn 2. He's definitely trying to recover still from that.
Yeah, and what I was saying a minute ago, these guys, they're not racing the tracks. They're racing each other. They want to hold on to as much track position as they can because, you know, in this Winston Cup style format, you got to remember that every position matters. Every point matters, and it looks like Bonomo's got a much better chicane entry and exit. He's going to get to the inside of Armillo, and it looks like he's going to try and put this pass on down in turn 1. Backside of it is Armillo. He dog blocks up. We almost had contact in turn 1.
That we almost did. That was almost head first. Luckily, the 7 was able to get slowed down enough to stay out of the wall. Loses the position, though, and now he's going to look in his rearview mirror because you got Eric Anderson, Christopher Simon, Tyler Millette, all within striking distance. The 7 now under threat once again is Bonomo saying, you guys take the 7. I'm going to try to run away from this and get up here. Maybe go try to catch the 8. That's what she's up ahead of him tonight.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. If you're the 9 of Stephen Bonomo, you got to look ahead. You can't be worried about what's happening behind you, and it's really easy to do that when you get in battles. But he's just got to look ahead and set sights on his next target and start working him over and start running him down. But unfortunately for Gary Armillo, he doesn't have that luxury. It looks like we're actually going to see the 43 of Eric Anderson under fire from the 27 of Christopher Simon here as we have a great battle going through this backstretch chicane.
That chicane always puts on great battles for sure. And right now, Simon trying to size up the 43 and take an opportunity out of him. And the thing is, though, all of these drivers in this range so close when it comes to the speed chart. I mean, literally hundreds and tenths just separate this group here. And that's why you're seeing them really just grouped together. It's almost like they're at a little bit of a drafting track, but they're at a road courses up ahead of them. Armillo again. You see the smoke? That's the 7 locking up there in the 1. He had such a close disaster last time before. Almost happens again this time. Eric Anderson once again in striking distance. That 7 can clean that up. I think he can get away from this grouping, but those little lockups, they'll come back to bite you later, Danny.
Yeah, and that's the mistakes you can't afford to make, you know, especially in a spot where you've got guys nipping at your heels and you know they're close behind you. You said it yourself, tenths and hundredths, that's what makes the difference here. You know, you can't afford to put yourself in a bad spot based off a mistake that you made. So I think he's got to kind of play the game of you can't beat yourself. You know, so many drivers, myself included, they fall victim to racing themselves and trying to beat themselves. And a lot of times it'll cause a mistake that ends up costing you your night. But, you know, something I've seen some of these guys doing whenever they get in tight quarters, such as what we've seen the 27 do to the 43 that last time through the chicane, is that you'll see them make that peek to the inside, kind of like they want to make the look and make the pass, but then they'll kind of duck back in, Zach. You know, is that them kind of playing mind games with one another to where they make the guy ahead of them maybe want to think that they're going to make that move and do something that, you know, would jeopardize both of their positions?
You know, personally myself, as a driver myself, I love to use the what I call the dummy move. You look to the inside, try to make them outbreak themselves, make the mistake for you, and let you buy the easy pass. So it's definitely a move I think a lot of drivers will employ, and it's really a high racecraft move. So I like to see it from drivers being employed. So that's really cool to see them doing that. But I can tell you one thing that is wild. The 06 of Brandon 6, he is now lapping this group. So he is now getting through that group, and we just watched. He just went around Tyler Millett, Christopher Simon, now going to be right behind Eric Anderson and Gary Armillo, and that's going to cause a little separation when the leader comes through to lap people. It kind of causes a few people to back out of a few situations while others don't. Then you'll see those gaps grow as Millett here, that second place driver, he's having a little trouble there trying to get around the lap traffic. He makes a mistake.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it can be so discouraging to watch the leader just blow by you tenths or, you know, even seconds quicker sometimes. But one thing I like to try and do when I'm in that spot is see what they're doing different than me. You know, see how they're taking these corner entry and exit approaches where you get to be behind the leader and you can kind of try to mimic the moves that they're making. And oftentimes it can help me, you know, be tenths a lap quicker whenever I'm around them, just being able to pick up on what they're doing and see the things that they're doing differently in each of these corners and just kind of, you know, trying to learn and make moves based off what they're doing.
That is 1,000% right, Danny, because I believe anything, a lot of people would say this, the line is more critical than anything when you come to a road course. If you're not hitting the optimal line, then you're just going to be struggling. There's this grouping. I said it was going to get spread out a little bit with the 06 lapping them. It's done the opposite, Danny. The 7 here in the 11th position. He's under threat once again.
Yeah, this group right here, they're giving us a show. I mean, this has been this has been kind of the quartet to watch the whole night, as we're going to see Tyler Millette maybe look to make a move on Christopher Simon. He got to his back bumper, but he didn't take the opportunity there, as he's opting to kind of ride in line right now through this portion of the track. We're going to see what they do after they get around the 60 of Mike Leftwich there, and they come onto this corner, onto the banked oval. And Zach, that corner right there, it's really important to get a good exit.
Oh, no doubt. That I think, because again, it leads to the best passing zone on the racetrack, but you have the longest straight, and the one place easiest to pass on road courses is in this straightaway. So you get those big runs off the corner, those long straightaways, you got to take advantage of those, because also they usually lead up to some pretty hard braking zones where you can make a difference also. So definitely, I think, probably the most important section of the track when it comes to being able to make passes, but also a place that is very easily to make some mistakes too. Is watching Millette there, as you can see up there. Armio, once again, he locked up. He missed the chicane, so that's going to make him take a slowdown. Actually, he came to a complete halt, so he almost did the NASCAR rule, and that's going to make him go from that 11th position back to 14th. And man, oh man, Millette, Simon and Anderson all going to gain a position there. Is Armio going to have to reformulate how to get back by him? As you can see, there's the 35 of Zach Millett. He's coming through to put these guys a lap down to the second place spot.
Yeah, you just really hate to see that happen for guys like Armio, who, you know, they're running really well, but they just continue to make these slight errors that just end up costing them majorly. And it's so easy to do at a road course. These next-gen cars drive on edges, but it's so easy to overstep your boundaries and overstep your limits as a driver. As we see 3 cars go in the wall there, go into that corner before they go back on the banked oval, and it kind of, you get this effect of getting led off a cliff, kind of a monkey see, monkey do kind of thing, where it even affected the second-place driver of Zach Millette. He watched, I believe it was the 43 of Eric Anderson get into the wall first, followed by Christopher Simon there, and he kind of followed in with them. But that's so easy to do, and you've really got to watch yourself doing that. And but it looks like he's navigating this lap traffic pretty well. The 43 looks to give him this position here as they work toward the front stretch.
Doing a great job definitely navigating that. It's so easy to kind of lead yourself into a mistake from other drivers, like you said, kind of that feeling of just following them into a mistake. So definitely a great job by Millette to get through that traffic. It's going to be next on Brandon Bowie in the 54 to get through that set of cars, and because he's got about a 3.5 second gap from Millette to himself. So he'll want to see that gap possibly drop a little bit, but at some point we will have to see pit stops here. I imagine we're probably going to see a one stop. It's just going to depend. Yeah, we got full fuel loads, so yeah, most likely it's going to be a one stop race here, Danny. The question is going to be, are tires going to be a choice? Because right now Brandon 6 again, lap 18, a 1:19.64 next gen car once again showing long into the run you can still run some of your fastest times.
Yeah, and that's something I think it could make or break somebody's race if they do or don't know that, you know, you can opt to not take tires here in these next-gen cars and still make great lap times. But, you know, as he closes in, don't look now, but the 22 of Jeremiah Stutzman has closed down the gap on Eric Warman now. He finds himself only a second back from the 31 car. It was a little bit closer a lap ago. The 31's pulled it back a little bit, but, you know, Brandon 6 is watching all this in front of him as the 8 of Christopher Leftwich. He has trouble there getting through that final chicane.
That he does, man. This just shows you it can sneak up on you at any time. Those mistakes, you gotta be paying attention, and if you aren't, you're gonna be quickly caught up in stuff. As Leftwich trying to hold on to that car, as right now we're going up to Stutzman. He's about a second and a half back from Mormon. That battle from 7th to 8th really has stayed pretty close, as actually Leftwich have been gaining on them and getting closer himself, as 6 goes by and puts Stutzman a lap down. We'll see where Brandon 6 can get up to. You know, possibly could almost lap up to 5th. You know, we'll have to see how far and how many mistakes play out. But yeah, at one point, if you're 6, you know, the gap he has almost 10 seconds now. Do you start to kind of back it down a little bit, Danny, and take less risk, or do you think that could lead to even mistakes sometimes?
So here's the thing about that. I like where your head's at, but I've found whenever I try and do that and I drive the track differently than I have been, I'm more apt to make a mistake. As just like that right there, he just kind of went through that chicane, missed his braking zone, And
Oh.
major impact for the 8 of Christopher Leftwich.
That was huge. He is done for. He is immediately to pit road after that hit. That was, almost, if we'll go back here and look at this replay. Oh, he just slammed into the wall there and broke the toe link. I'm more than certain happened right there. And most likely that right front is broken. And when you break that toe link, in iRacing, you also lose the braking of that tire. So he goes to press the brakes here. He can't get slowed down. You can see the other tires locking up, and he just goes head first, slams into the wall, resets, and that's night over for Christopher Leftwich. So his race is over after a heavy collision to the outside wall after running in that 8th position.
Really, really hate to see that for him. He had bad luck last week. He looked poised for a top 10 here tonight. Just hate to see that bad luck streak continue for Leftwich. I don't know if he just wasn't aware of how bad it was going down into the corner, and then when he tried to kind of correct it here, he just kind of careens into that inside wall, and that's kind of all she wrote for the 8 here.
Tough break for Leftwich there. Heavy impact. Luckily, no one else involved in that or taken out in that hit there, because that could have been a big thing. But that mistake from Brandon 6, we saw it there live. It chopped about 4 seconds out of his lead. So huge mistake from this 06 machine. And now as he's trying to make the pass on Warman to put Warman a lap down, as that's the 7th place position now, a lap down. Brandon 6 just shows you he's fast, not immune to mistakes though, Danny.
Yeah, he might do good to benefit from what you were saying about kind of backing down as a leader and taking less risks. But the problem, and this is what I was about to say a few minutes ago, the problem that I have with that is it gets me out of a rhythm and I can't hit my marks, and it usually leads to more mistakes, at least for myself, because I can't drive the track the same way I've been driving it for the 20 laps previous. So I don't know, it's kind of a rough situation either way you look at it. You're still apt to make mistakes. For my part of it, I just like to keep going the way I have been, try and get it all that I can, and if nothing else, to at least for Brandon 6, try and make a statement. You can really play a lot of psychological warfare in racing, but to come out here and potentially, I don't want to, overstate it, but lap up to maybe, 5th, 4th, wherever he might get to, it really makes a statement for the rest of the season saying, hey, I am the guy to beat. You guys have nothing on me. And obviously that remains to be seen as he gets pretty heavy in the chicane there, almost making another mistake. So I don't know, maybe he doesn't want to make that statement, Zach, but I think it could go either way for him here.
It definitely can go both ways with that. Sometimes, that statement can come back to bite you. So we'll see if that 06 can continue on the track he's going for now, as we are starting lap 22 of 55. We think this will be a perfect time. As 06, as I say that, I mean, man, he's flirting with disaster right now, Danny. And I'll tell you what, I don't want to commentary curse him. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take our first break of the night up here in the booth. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in so far to the first 22 laps of tonight's event. It's been a spectacular start and a wild one that you're not going to want to miss the end to. So we'll be back here in the next few moments. No, you're not going to miss things. We'll be back. are back here, folks, at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval for the Doghouse Racing Cup Series, brought to you by Shoney's, your All-American Kitchen. Right now, Zach Millett is our leader after we come back from break because Brandon Six in the 06 machine has pitted, and Brandon Bowie is up to second in the 54 machine. So we'll see when the top two leaders elect to come down, but pit stops have started to transpire. My name is Zach Hall, and with me up in the booth tonight is Danny Cochran. Danny, we're back from break, and I tell you what, we saw some big moments there. Of course, we see the 43 Eric Anderson there. You actually see the damage on the rear end. He got ran in the back of from our previous leader, Brandon 06, there in the braking zone. So that was a tough break for Eric Anderson.
Yeah, that was scary to watch, Zach, because these races can end for these guys in a hurry, and it takes one mistake to really ruin your night. But one thing I noticed from that pit stop, Zach, is we seen the 06, he actually put 4 tires on. We talked about it before the break. Would these guys choose to do that? He did choose to do so. Jamie Horn chose to do so. So curious to see what the other two guys ahead of Brandon Six opt to do with Brandon Bowie and Zach Millett, as they still have to make their pit stops.
It's going to be a very, I think, important decision to make, because right now we're seeing Brandon Six turn his fastest lap times of the day, so he has found a little bit of speed at addition of those tires, but it does seem like the speed stays in the tires. It seems like the mistakes are more prevalent when the tires are a little bit more worn out. So the speed is there. It's just, can you put that whole lap together? So I think you're going to see a lot of these drivers, probably more than most of them, take 4 tires like that 06 and Brandon Six. But we'll see. I mean, you know, Zach Millett and Brandon Bowie, that, I think, if you're going to make that decision, you can make that call. I think the only other problem they run into is you're about to have to put almost about a full tank of fuel in there. So it is going to be a long stop anyway, so 4 tires might almost be necessary.
Yeah, and I mean, these are just the factors that these guys have to weigh. Well, 4 tires is always going to be the safer option, but, you know, if you feel you're in a spot, well, I don't have a ton to lose from trying to go for this win, then I could see trying to skip those tires and, you know, make all the speed that, or make all the time that you can, even if it does sacrifice your speed a little bit. If you think you can net gain off of opting to not put tires on the car, then myself, I'd say go for it. What do you really have to lose? The field's so spread out that, you know, you realistically probably wouldn't lose more than a spot or two unless you wrecked. So myself, it's easy to say this from outside the car, but I'd say if you're Brandon Bowie or you're Zach Millett, don't take tires.
I think it's worth it. I mean, the gap they have behind the other drivers, it is a worthy call, I think, for him. As Bowie, you can see there, he was spinning the rear tires up off the exit of the corner, really trying to get after it here to catch Zach Millett. It's been a grind for him. I mean, when he got to this position behind the 35, he was about 5.5 seconds behind him. It's about 3 seconds. It's been kind of back and forth in between that range. So Bowie slowly every now and then just clicking little bits and chunks of this gap away. And I think before this 55 laps is over, I think Bowie does get to him. It's just going to be a question, is he going to be able to get around that 35? And what's the strategy going to be, too, when they come to pit road here?
Yeah, I mean, definitely got to weigh all those factors watching the 54. And let's not forget, he started this race outside the top 10. He's really got the full Roval experience here, working his way back up from 12th spot where he started, seeing guys spin in front of him, having to take evasive action on multiple occasions. We see him get him a little hot down into that chicane there, but it looks like he's going to recover from it all right. But yeah, I mean, watching Brandon Bowie work his way up through the field early on there was certainly putting on a show. So I think he definitely does have the speed, like you said, to continue to close down that gap on the 35 of Zach Millett. It's just like you said, can he get around him? Because there's an old adage in racing, Zach. Passing him is one, or excuse me, getting there is one thing, passing's another.
That's exactly right, Danny. We all know that as drivers ourselves, and I'm sure all you fans have heard it too. That is a for sure thing. You know, you can be faster, but passing is a completely different story. As we're down watching right here, the 98 of Jamie Horn. He's got Steven Bonomo, who is behind him, but Bonomo is 1 lap down to Jamie Horn. So this right here, not a battle for position, but a battle that is very close on the racetrack. And I can tell you one position that changed hands that has been going on for pretty much the whole race is the battle between 5th and 6th of Eric Corman and Jeremiah Stutzman. Stutzman finally has found his way around this 31. And Danny, we watched him that 22, he would close it down, then someone come by to lap him, he'd lose all that time just letting the leaders by.
Yeah, and credit where it's due to Stutzman. It's very respectful play, letting the leaders pass. It just hurt him a lot, in those instances of doing so. But don't count out Eric Warman. He hasn't let that 22 very far out of his sights. So I mean, we can't rule out whether it's just him learning from the 22, maybe taking some notes on the lines that he's running, what he can do a little bit differently, or it might even be a factor of the 22 making a slight mistake as we see him close down that gap. They're pretty close together going through bank 3 and 4 with, don't look now, but the 06 of Brandon 6 closing in on him to work back past him after he's put tires on.
It's going to be wild to see as Brandon there, a little lockup now, going to cross over to the left, and look, Stutzman pulls left, lets him by. Warman fights, and again, that's where Stutzman is losing his time. That is a great example of what we were talking about, and again, very respectable from the 22 to do that. But at the same time, he's going to have to, at some point here, weigh the options of his race and kind of, would be willing to risk to hold up the leader just a little bit, especially with the gap the leaders have.
Yeah, part of me says it's very respectful play by Stutzman. I do like seeing that, but at the same time, you have a right to be on that racetrack too. You don't have to lay over for these guys necessarily. I mean, you don't want to be in their way, but the 22 has a right to be there, and I think that's one thing that, especially for the 06, that we could see be a difference maker here as these laps wind down, is how he navigates this traffic. Obviously, the 22 made it very easy on him, but is everybody going to play that nice? Is everybody going to... I mean, we've seen Eric Warman there in the front stretch chicane that last time by, kind of not meaning to, but he held him up. So, he's got more cars to work past here, and I think that could play a factor into how his race shapes out.
He very well could, Danny, for sure. As we're seeing Warman here try to get away a little bit from Stutzman at the time. As Brandon 6 in the 06 tries to close down the gap from him to Brandon Bowie. And the thing, I like that Brandon Bowie and Millet are kind of doing here, Danny, is with how far they're stretching this run out here, they can take less fuel, and that option of taking no tires becomes a little bit better in my opinion. The less fuel and the less amount of fuel you have to put in the car, the less they're going to have to hold you for not taking no tires. So that right there could be some of the strategy they're looking to play. We'll just have to see how it shakes out. I mean, right now, if you're Millet, you're only a half a second slower than your fastest lap of the race right now on these 31 lap old tires. It could be worth the advantage of just staying out on the older tires and just putting some fuel.
Well, there's one key factor here that we got to think about. Don't look now, but Brandon Bowie in the 54 has closed down yet another second on the 35 of Zach Millet. You can see him in frame with the 35 there at a couple of shots, so he's got to work past the 60 of Mike Left, which gets by pretty easy, as now the 54 is going to have to work the same cars. But you can see him there, Zach. He's not that far back off the 35, possibly having a shot at this lead as Zach Millet gets into the wall a little bit there.
A little bit of a slide there into the wall for the 35. That allows the gap to close down. The 54, Brandon Bowie, he is closing in, folks, up to second. And from the 12th starting spot, Bowie's been on a mission all night. He's our second place points man. He wants to do whatever he can to gain on his teammate of Brandon 6. But he's going to take a valiant effort because Brandon 6 right now about 17 seconds back from the 54th moment. We'll see how it all shakes out after pit stops. I would imagine Brandon 6 still equates to being up front, even if these drivers don't take tires.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a really good time, after he's pit, having the open track kind of work with the exception of a couple instances there, like with the 31 of Eric Warman, but just being able to kind of run your own line and at your own pace, it certainly worked to his advantage, except for a couple instances where we did kind of see him almost beat himself there in that backstretch chicane. But I mean, the more I watch this go on, the more I like the strategy of, if you're Zach Millet or Brandon Bowie, don't put tires on it. Try and take fuel. I mean, what do you really have to lose? I mean, obviously it's 21 seconds back to Brandon 6, and that's going to change, but it's over a minute back to the 98 of Jamie Horn off the leaders. So, I mean, you have nothing to lose, really. I don't see a reason to put fuel in the car. As, wait a minute, Zach, the 06 is on pit road.
Oh, he is on pit road. I think he's got a beat ball. He broke his toe link.
He broke a toe link, Zach.
He did, and he did it
is
exactly
everything.
where I thought he would, right there, where Millet just went by. We'll look on the replay. This is one thing I watched from him. I sat here and watched him, and his line was very strong throughout the whole entire track. The one place I was concerned is this sector of the racetrack. He always seemed to be flirting a little bit with disaster here on this exit with the right rear. This time, too hard of a collision. I mean, completely body slams the wall. That breaks the suspension. That's game over. Race done, race win gone, and guess what? Points are getting drained away from the 06. He's going to have to get that fixed up. I think the big thing for him, he's had such a gap that if they get those toe links fixed up, he could still somehow come out of here with the top 5.
Yeah, and you're probably watching that thing, well, that didn't look like a very hard hit. You know, what happened? It doesn't take much. These toe links are very weak in these next-gen cars. As we see 06, he's actually coming out of pit road right behind the leaders. As I imagine he still has significant damage on that car. He's going to have to kind of limp it around. He probably, what my guess is happened, he got his required fix that he had to, and now he probably has 3, 4, maybe 5 minutes of optional damage that he probably didn't take. So he's going to limp this thing around. He's going to get what he can, but he can ride off of a race win here tonight. I mean, this truly changes everything. We've got a battle for the win now between the 35 of Zach Millet and the 54 of Brandon Bowie.
Oh, man, what a story this could be. Brandon Bowie looking for his second ever win here in the Doghouse Racing League. Zach Millet, he's looking for his first ever. So this could be huge scenes here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. This is just got a lot more wild. And guess what? If you're Bowie, you go out here and win. And, you know, Brandon 6 can only finish at best what looks like maybe 3rd or 4th at the moment. It would be still a nice little chunk of change gain for Brandon Bowie. So that is a huge ordeal.
Well, now we see the 35, Zach Millet hitting pit road. It's going to be interesting to see his stop here, what he chooses to do. Does he put 4 tires on it? Or does he opt to go with the riskier option of leaving the tires out and just putting a little bit of fuel in this thing to get him to the end of this race?
How this shakes out for Millet here. What strategy is employed, because anything is on the table now. Strategy is definitely available because it's a heads-up race, and from what I'm seeing, it's fuel only, Danny. I like the call from the 35.
I do too. I mean, he was a little bit slower than the 54 on that last run there. The 54 worked him down to about 1.2, 1.5 seconds at the end, but I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a second or a mile. If he doesn't put tires on this thing, and the 54, he does choose to put tires on, I think it's wraps on the race, and he hands the win to the 35. But especially after maybe seeing the 35 choose not to take those tires, I believe the 54 is going to be inclined to do the same thing. So then it becomes a matter of who gets on and off pit road better, right? You know, it's such, and that's one thing a lot of people don't think about factoring in, is it's very, very easy to make up or lose a second coming in or getting off pit road, as opposed to when it does on the racetrack itself.
We'll definitely have to see how this shakes out now, because Bowie coming to pit road. What are the decisions to be made from the 54 crew? Is it tires or is it fuel only? That is going to be the question. The watch here, if the jacks, if it jacks that car up, we'll have to see. Also, another thing that we'll have to watch in this final 20 laps, Brandon 6 about 19 seconds behind Jamie Horn and about half a second quicker, so he has a possibility to catch him. But I do think Brandon 6 is actually having troubles. He's actually going around as we're watching right now. Bowie fuel only, and he looked like he had a quicker stop there, and I can confirm about 3 seconds quicker. 8.9 in the box compared to 12.1. I think Millet filled the whole car up.
Yeah, and that's going to really affect the handling of both these cars. I like it a lot better for Bowie than I do for Millet, that lighter car compared to a heavier car of taking fuel. And we can see the gap now after we get off pit road. It's about a second back to Zach Millet in the 35. I mean, it looks really good for Brandon Bowie right now.
It looks amazing for Brandon Bowie. He might have pulled the master class here tonight. Started 12th, was up to 5th on the first lap after chaos ensued. And Millet now to the outside wall. He's looking like he hit the wall pretty hard there. You got to be careful. We saw already the dominant car of the night, the 06 of Brandon 6. He hits that wall hard, destroys the toe link, and he had now looks like he's going to be limping home to maybe a 4th place finish.
Yeah, I mean, you really got to learn from your competitors' mistakes. I know it's hard to do, but you got to back down just a little bit harder, or a little bit softer, and, just play it more carefully than your peers did, because it can cost you just as much or more as it costs him. But don't look now, Zach. The 35 of Millet has actually closed down almost half a second to the 54 of Brandon Bowie.
That he has. He's closed that gap down, Danny, and it is starting to heat back up a little bit for the win, because I tell you, sometimes it can be tough to be the leader. Sometimes being that driver in the second is a little bit more of a cat and mouse game, as Millet sliding that car, as Bowie sliding to get around the lap machine there of the 03 of Brandon Dixon, who's going to do a great job to get out the way. He's going to go 2 laps down, but the battle for the lead, the battle for the win, it's on here with 19 laps to go.
Yeah, and 19 laps, don't get me wrong, that's still a long time. That's a long time to see a mistake. That's a long time to see, anything, any of the hundreds of factors that can change the outcome of a race here. As we get close to that wall again, it almost wants to reach out and bite you, but they get through there that time, and we see, looks like right now, the 54 has a little bit more of an advantage of 0.93 gap back to the 35 of Zach Millet, but if I'm the 35, I just want to kind of follow the 54, let him know I'm there, don't let him get that gap on me, and just kind of be there and be ready for when he, may slip up or do something, overstep a corner or whatever it may be. And it goes back to what you were saying, Zach. It's so much easier for me as a driver to follow somebody than it is to lead, because I can kind of go off of them as a point of reference for whether it's braking or, throttling up out of a corner or whatever it may be. The 35 of Zach Millet isn't letting him get too far out of his sights here.
He is definitely not. It's still within a second between the top 2, and lap time is still very close between those 2. One thing I will say they're coming up to next, they're about 5 seconds behind Brandon 6 here in the 06 machine. And I can confirm, Brandon 6 is struggling with the damage. His car is, it's crab walking down the straightaways, Danny. It's pretty much the left rear is kicked out to the left, while the right front is kicked over to the right. So the car is very much skewed in a way you would not want. So he's going to have a tough time just more or less making it to the end of this race. But I think if you're Brandon 6, it's tough, because you dominated this race. You felt like you had to win maybe in your grasps, and it slips away like this and you lose points. But if he somehow can nurse this car home for a top 5 finish, this could be the saving material that he needs for his championship. Because if he makes any more mistakes and has to go get more damage fixed, and he drops outside the top 10 or so, we could see then really big championship implications from tonight's race.
Yeah, and I think if you're Brandon 6, that's what you got to keep in mind, is the big picture. Obviously, this sucks. Nobody wants to lose a race that way. But, at the end of the day, as long as he keeps the thing under him, he still finishes with the top 5. It's a big difference on track, but the points, they're not going to show that much of a difference. Yeah, he's going to lose a little bit to Brandon Bowie, especially if the 54 does win this race. That's more points for him. But, you don't lose all that much relative to, say, you get frustrated with your driving, your night's gone poorly, you overstep one of these corners just out of frustration or whatever it may be, you jump the thing, you're done. There's still 17 laps to go. You could possibly find yourself well outside the top 10, back in like the 13th or 14th position. So he's got to really keep that in mind and say, yeah, okay, this isn't what I wanted out of the night, but I'm still within striking distance of a podium. So I think it's very important that he keeps his eye on that big picture.
No doubt. I think that's gonna have to be the thought in his mind for sure. If we're looking out, the 3rd place driver of this 98 of Jamie Horn, he's done an excellent job of just being in 3rd to 4th place all night. He's done a good job of just kind of being there, and that is what sometimes it takes at these road courses, and he's going to possibly come home with a really solid podium finish.
Yeah, and if you're the 98, you're a guy who hasn't shown race-winning speed tonight. Just being able to be there and take advantage of those mistakes goes such a long way. And it can kind of set the tone for your entire season, just being able to be there when it matters and put yourself in a spot where you can take advantage of other people's misfortune. And it doesn't always win you a championship, but it can certainly put you in a good spot toward the end of the season. You never know what can happen. When we get down toward the end of this thing, we got Talladega next week, so there's a good chance for points to be gained or lost there. And I think just having himself within striking distance goes a long way toward his season.
No doubt that is definitely, I think, something he's got to keep in his mindset is right now, most of the field is pretty spread out from each other. Still the closest battle on the racing surface is going to be Zach Millett and Brandon Bowie. And the one thing, concerned a little bit for Millett too, that I've seen from Brandon Bowie, he's gotten to the walls a few good times on that right side of that car, Danny. And we know from the iRacing updates they brought throughout this year, that compounds, that weakens the side of that car and only weakens that weak toe link that much more. So, if you're Millett, you got to be careful. This second place finish, you want to go for a win, but, risking for the win could be a huge loss. I mean, at the same time, though, Danny, he's got to weigh his options too because he's a new driver. It's only his third race here. So it's kind of a thing where he doesn't have really too much to lose when it comes to points.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot to lose, but you're exactly right. I mean, it's so easy to get tunnel vision and kind of put yourself in a bad spot because of that. It's, again, even for his sake, not being here very long, it's important to focus on the big picture, It's something that it's tough to keep in the back of your mind, but you have to. You don't want to put yourself in too risky of a position or somebody else in too risky of a position where, maybe you do win the race, but now you've got hypothetically somebody else mad at you, so you got to deal with that for the rest of the season. As we're actually seeing these leaders here, they're working up on the 06 of Brandon 6, so we know that car's hurt. We know he's been having trouble. I mean, I'd hate to see it, but you never know what can happen here in front of these leaders if that thing breaks loose out from under him or whatever may happen.
We'll have to see how it works. As you can see, just looking at that car, just doesn't look like it's driving very straight for him. He's doing an excellent job of wheeling this thing. I don't know if we can get it on board from him because, man, he is. I think we'll see it here as we ride on board with him, Daddy. This is a lot of work. Look at the wheel; it is so off center.
Yeah, one thing you don't want to see is on a straightaway. Notice here how that wheel's pointed toward the left. It's not supposed to do that. You want to, this toe's knocked out of it. It's bent the steering, bent some of the wheels, or at least one of the wheels on that left rear. And we're seeing now it's pointed that wheel to about the 10 o'clock position when he's going straight. So what he has to do because of that is kind of adjust his entire steering instead of from being centered to about 30 degrees to the left and kind of go off of that in these corners. And that's not an easy thing to do. Major props to him for keeping this thing under him because that's no small feat. That's not an easy thing for him to do here.
And these left-handers are so tough when the damage like this. You can just see how much wheel he has to turn in that race car to get it to turn. So this is definitely tough for him as he's going to stay up high here. I think he's going to let teammate Brandon Bowie, Zach Millett go by. So respectable call here for Brandon 6 here. He knows the race for the win is over for him. He's just going to try to bring this thing home. Right now, Kevin Powell would be about 31 seconds behind him. So it's still a sizable gap there that I think he can hold on to that spot for Brandon 6.
Yeah, as we see the 54 and the 35 more lap traffic here getting around the 9 of Steven Manomo, he now goes 2 laps down. And we're seeing them, I mean, they're having a pretty easy time with traffic, all things told. Everybody's playing really nice with them. Everybody's being very respectful. It's what you want to see. But at any point, if you're on the lead lap about to go a lap down, you don't technically have to give anything up. And I don't think we're going to see that before the end of this race. But, I mean, lap cars, whether they intend to or not, they can play a huge detriment to your race, and they can really be a key factor in deciding how this thing plays out, Zach.
It really can be. Lap cars can play a huge factor for sure, and it's something we see a lot of times. Is right now Kevin Powell about 18 seconds ahead of Jeremiah Stutzman. So Powell right here in the 5th position. He's kind of, again, once again, in no man's land. And just having a really solid night for the 93 team. They're just running right where, they kind of, I would say, expected, especially off of, I would say, looking at the practice sheets. You kind of looked at Kevin Powell's lap times. You say, okay, he's kind of right there in that range. He started 15th. I think that's the big thing you got to take away for the 93. Started pretty much all the way near the back, survived through that initial chaos, and has been in the top 5 for pretty much the majority of this race, just clicking laps together, doing a great job in this 93.
Yeah, and what this can be for not just the 93 of Kevin Powell, but for anybody, is a great learning experience. Being able to log these 55 laps, and I don't want to get ahead of myself or jinx him, but we got to pitch for the lead, Zach. We got to pitch for the lead.
Bowie goes around off the final chicane. You're going to see here, he's getting back up to speed, but he spun that car out off the exit of the final chicane. Big mistake from second place man in points and race leader of tonight, Brandon Bowie. I mean, right there, just giving it over to Millet. And I tell you what, with the pace being so similar between those two, this is going to be tough for Bowie to close this gap down. We're you know, next time by going to be at 10 laps to go, Danny. This is not looking very, or sorry, we're going to come back to 11 to go. This is not looking very likely for Bowie if he can try to have the rundown that he needs here. He's going to need some help from this 35, I think.
He's really got to haul the mail here if he wants a shot to win this race. And it goes back to what I said earlier. Being the 35, you just got to be in a spot where you can strike if the leader makes a mistake. And we saw that kind of happen. But for the 54 now, for Brandon Bowie, he really has to just keep a square level head on his shoulders, turn the laps that he knows he can run. He ran down the 35 from almost, what was it? It was over a 10-second deficit. I mean, he came back from being outside the top 10 at the start of this race. So he really just has to keep in mind, okay, I can do this. I can get him. It might take all 11 remaining laps, but he has already put down almost half a second on that gap. So I wouldn't write him off at this stage, but he really has to put together some perfect laps here, Zach.
I think the thing you brought up best is he has to be perfect for 11 laps. You know, it's going to be tough. I think that's the toughest thing for him is he's going to be able to gain chunks of time, but you can't lose time. If you make those mistakes that loses you time by trying to gain it, it's just going to negate anything you gain. So we'll see how Bowie can navigate that. Right now, Millet, though, tough position because he's in big traffic here. You got Millet, who's side by side. I think that was Gorman in the 31, and that's going to be a huge chunk of time lost. Almost a full half a second cut out of time, and it's going to be more than that because it leads onto this straightaway. The only thing now, though, is Bowie, he's in traffic. He's got Warman up ahead, and he's going to have to try to outbrake Tyler Millet here if he wants to not lose too much time here being behind the 94. Yeah,
he caught that 94 in a really bad spot in that chicane, holds him up big time coming out of that corner. He had it down to a second on the 35. The 94 playing a huge detriment, though, as it's back to a 1.5 second gap and growing. But overall, I'd say the 54 came out of that smelling like a rose. I mean, he closed down close to half a second on the 35 ahead of him, and we touched on this a moment ago. The 54 has to be perfect, but here's the thing, Zach. The 35 has to be pretty close to perfect as well to not let the 54 get back to him and could potentially make that pass if we see the 35 make a similar mistake to what the 54 done.
This is going to be quite the show. It's going to get very spicy because it's down to 1.2 seconds. Big mistake for Bowie, though. Sticks a tire in the grass. He's going to lose a good chunk of change there. But the big thing for him was about 4/10 quicker the time before, and he even had that, you know, both drivers really had that hold up with the lap traffic. So it was pretty even losses. But if you're Bowie here, the mistakes just need to be limited. The speed should be there to close the gap. But Millet, amazing job out of the final corner there before the oval and gets a great drive off. And I mean, he just opens the gap up here before the final chicanes. We'll see if this is the part of the track where Bowie's better.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be better everywhere right now. We touched on this before talking about, you know, our experience with WSSR is that these next-gen cars, they have such a razor-thin edge that you have to be on in order to make as much time as you can. I mean, he didn't really close anything on Zach Millet there through that chicane. So we'll see what he does here on this front stretch chicane. Looks good on the entry. Has a pretty solid exit, but it's not really enough to close on him, as Zach Millet is doing equally as good of a job. So, I mean, the 54, he just has to drive the race of his life if he wants to shot at winning this race.
He's really going to have to, Danny. He's going to have to put it all together. I think the sector that he's really good is right here in the first part of the lap. It just seems like every single time around, he gains about a 10th or two. The part of the track, though, I think Millet has over him is this next section here. Right through here and onto the oval, Millet has just been a little bit better with his exits and able to just open up that gap back to what Bowie gains in the infield. We'll see if this time Bowie's able to match it. But again, Millet with a good one, but Bowie this time a little bit better, able to match it and gain the time that he gained through the opening part of the lap and keep it even.
If he continues to close at this rate, he's got about 4/10 of a second on him. that will be enough to at least get there on the 35 before this race is over. I'm not saying it'll be enough to get around him. Again, getting there's one thing, passing's another. We went over that earlier, but it will be enough for him to be within striking distance if the 35 slips up, or we see any other factors at play, such as lap traffic, as we go back down through the front stretch chicane. We'll see these guys come back around and taking 8 laps to go.
This is wild to watch. The gap ever so changing. It just seems like Bowie better in some spots, Bullet better than in others. It kind of brings the gap to a standstill. That last time around, though, it was almost about a 0.3 of a second gain. It was just under that. So Bowie needs to continue this because the laps are clicking away. Time is running out. Only 8 laps to go here. But all it takes, though, is a pressure of the mistakes around each and every corner.
Yeah, and if you're the 35 of Zach Millett, just knowing that the 54 is there is enough to cause a mistake. But also seeing him close, seeing that go from a 1-point-something deficit to a 0-point-something deficit, you know, even if it's just a couple tenths of a second change, it's enough to get in your head. I mean, it'll play a factor, no doubt about it, for the 35. So he just has to really watch himself. Don't let yourself be susceptible to the same mistakes that the 54 made that put you in that spot. You got to learn from him, do what he done and do it better, and not make the same mistakes. As we see roughly no close on this lap so far. We'll see what happens in the front stretch.
Been pretty even this lap. It was a slight gain in the infield, but it just seems like that back straightaway is where Millett is really, really strong here as they come through the final chicanes. This time around, it looks like time's very similar to the time before. Again, about a 0.2 of a second gain here. Let's see if we can continue this run down.
Yeah, 0.2. I mean, again, it'll get him close, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to get him past him. You're going to maybe have to rely on a mistake from that 35 to have a shot at winning this race, but he does continue to close ever so slightly, lap by lap. So, and again, the psychological factor, I can't stress that enough. It makes a difference for the leader as we see it now down to a 0.7 deficit as we start the second half of the lap.
It makes a huge difference. The more that driver fills up the mirror, the more you start to overthink your braking zones, more you start to try to get a little bit more on exit, the more those mistakes seem to show up. And Bowie has been excellent here at closing the gap down in the final few laps. We'll see if that opportunity comes available. Another thing, Denny, he's playing into right now is the closer he gets, the worse his arrow is going to be. But I think it's not going to matter too much. The 54 just seems like he's on the prowl.
Yeah, well, one thing that plays to the 54's advantage, his section of the track where he's good, it's lower speed. I'm not saying arrow doesn't make a difference. It's just not as important because, you know, being faster where the speeds are lower, as he gets into the wall there, he's got to watch out for that. Might end up like Brandon Six, but, you know, it allows him to continue to do what he's been doing and get closer to that back bumper of the 35 down through the S as we go. There's a 0.36 deficit for this lead position, Zach.
It is on right now, Danny. This is what it's all about, folks. Coming down to the end of this race. It's heart-pounding. It's thrilling. What will Bowie have, though? It's 6 to go here, and we'll be coming to 5 mere laps. And it's going to take time. You know, Bowie's been quicker, but again, like you said, making the pass is a whole different story. Where do you think he's going to have to set this up, Danny? He's been a little bit better in the chicanes. Right now, a good exit there from the 54 keeps it within a decent gap here down the backstretch.
You're right. He has been really good, and there are a few passing zones, but Brandon Bowie's problem, his biggest deficit, where he's fast at, aren't necessarily the passing zones. We see him really fast in like the double apex that you see in the infield of this track, but you get these chicanes to where, you know, heavy braking zones where you can really outbrake somebody. That's where the 35 has an advantage, and I think that could be enough to keep that 35 in front of Brandon Bowie, but at the same time, it's so tough to say because, again, you know, he's within striking distance. He's close enough where a slight mistake changes the trajectory of this race and might put him in victory lane.
Very well could be what leads to it. 5 laps to go here at the Charlotte Roval. Brandon Bowie, Zach Millett, they were running second and third for majority of this race as Brandon 06 was driving away. He makes the mistake, breaks his toe link. It opens up the door for quite the battle, and now that battle is for the race win and for a possible first-time win for Zach Millett, and only his third start here at the Shoney's Doghouse Cup Series. And I'll tell you what, both of his races so far were top 5 performances. Tonight could be the breakthrough.
Yeah, and what a statement that would make. To come in here, your third start, put yourself in victory lane. It shows that, hey, I don't have the start on the season that you guys do. You guys got the jump on me, but, I can still be a factor here week in and week out. And we're coming down here into this chicane. We're going to see what the 54 can do under braking against the 35. Brandon Bowie looks to have a decent entry. I don't know if he's going to be enough to be able to close on him necessarily through, oval turns 3 and 4 here. But we're still setting up. We're coming to 4 laps to go. We're going to have an awesome battle for the win here, no doubt.
We really are. This is going to be excellent. Right here, if you're Bowie, it's gotten tough since the closer you've gotten. The lap times are pretty much identical for Millet each and every time by, right around a low 120.3 to 0.4. Really every single time around. It's been Bowie who's been able to reach down into those 19s to find the time. But I think the closer he's gotten, the tougher it has gotten with that aero condition that we call dirty air. And he's going to lock up head first into the wall.
That's what we did not want to see for the 54. Hopefully he doesn't have any, significant left front damage on that race car. I fear that may be his race though, Zach.
That could be the ceiling deal here with 4 laps to go. Brandon Bowie, huge lock up there to that outside wall. He's got to be careful though. That left front took a pretty big hit there. Luckily, I think because it was the tire barriers, he didn't get that damage that we've seen so far from some of these drivers hitting walls. But right now, the gap opening up. Millet maybe feeling a little bit more comfort knowing he's coming to 3 to go. But I tell you what, as those laps click away, those 3 laps are going to be an eternity.
Oh, no doubt. There's nothing longer than a lap when you're leading. If you're Brandon Bowie, they're flying away just like that. But if you're Zach Millet, every lap feels like it's an hour long. But one thing about Brandon Bowie, and I wanted to touch on this a minute ago, and I wish I would have, his biggest strength is also his biggest weakness. He uses up every bit of the racing surface, and he just leaves himself no room for error, which generates more speed for him, and I think is why we've seen him close down as he continues to close this deficit down once again. He might not be out of this thing, Zach.
I tell you what, he's not. He's immediately put himself right back in the mix. He's only 6/10 back. If he has a good exit here, and that's a good second half of the lap, when we come to 2 to go here, it's going to be a close distance. So Bowie not out of it. It looks like that left front damage didn't really cause no issues again. And I think getting kind of lucky that it's a tire barrier and not a concrete barrier. Because, he's going to flow a disaster there too. Touch the tire barrier. And it's going to work out for him this time, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would say you can't be too careful, but he's kind of thrown caution to the wind here this last few laps. He's got it back down under a second. I mean, he's definitely closed up to where he was. He definitely was slower the last lap because of the mistake, but I mean, he has started closing back on the 35 of Zach Millet. He just has to be clean. That's his biggest thing. He can't afford another mistake. He can't damage this race car because you touched on earlier, these cars, they get weaker after several hits. I mean, I fear that the next one could be detrimental to his car and his race, frankly.
It very well could, but through the final chicane, what a push. Almost brings it under a half a second, as it's going to be 2 laps to go here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Brandon Bowie trying to put on a show. Zach Millet trying to hang on. It's been everything in his power to keep the 54 back, but it's going to be quite the show because we're now within striking distance.
2 laps isn't a long time, or at least it doesn't sound like it, but there is so much that can change. There's still so much that can happen. We have roughly a lap and a half worth of racing left, and we are under half a second for the battle for the lead.
That we are. Right now, Millet feeling all the pressure in the world. Right here has to be an excellent exit. He's been doing a good job. Does it once again. Gets a good enough exit to keep the gap stable, not allowing Bowie to close in to have an opportunity down here in the back straightaway chicane. But this is going to be critical. Here we go into the back straightaway chicane for the penultimate time tonight. Bowie on the curb on the exit. Now trying to get the power he needs down the straightaway to keep the gap close. The place he's been better has been the final chicane. He's been able to gain multiple tenths each and every lap there. We'll see for the penultimate time, does he gain that same amount of time? Because here we go through the final chicane. White flag is in the air. We got one more time around the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval.
One more time around, and we do have a race on our hands. It's less than 4 tenths, almost 3 tenths between the 2 leaders. Here they come up through the S's, over the hill, down toward the corners where Brandon Bowie has shown so much strength so far. and he's within striking distance. If he wanted to put the bumper to the 35, he probably could. Less than a quarter of a second between the 2 leaders, Zach.
The pressure is on. Right now, it is all on for the lead. Zach Millett holding on, but can the 54 pressure him into a mistake, or does he make the move? He's within distance here, but not going to have an opportunity. This is not a corner to pass. This is a corner to set it up. He's going to get right to the bumper. Can Millett put the power down as they come to the back straightaway chicane?
Through ovals 1 and 2 they go. I mean, he's within striking distance. 1.16 back to the 54 of Brandon Bowie. I mean, he's close enough. He can make something happen if he wants to. Under heavy braking into this chicane, Zach. He's close.
All about the exit here, Danny. He is definitely close as they come to oval 3 and 4 for the final time tonight. I think Millett did enough on the exit to keep up the gap, but it's been Bowie's final corner that he's been gaining the time. Will the send come, or will Millett's first victory of the season come in only his 3rd start? Bowie sends, but Millett wins!
What a finish that was. 54 of Brandon Bowie. He done all he could. It just wasn't enough to topple the 35 of Zach Millett. He put on a show, man. I mean, he done everything he needed to do there, Zach.
Wow, what a show in there from our top 2 battle all the way down to the end as they're going to show some love. Jamie Horn, though, our 3rd place man, he's still tricking out there for his final lap as the other drivers are crossing the line that were laps down. No race will come to an end. Jamie Horn, though, only driver still on the lead lap other than our top 2. He's going to be in a podium position. I'm sure he'll love that. But Millett, 3rd start, 1st victory. Quite the scenes for the rookie driver here at Doghouse, and I think he's going to be very excited when we get to talk to him, Danny.
Oh, no doubt about it. Love to see that for him. Only a few races in, and he's able to collect the victory. I don't mean to steal his thunder, but worth pointing out, the 06 of Brandon 6 did come home with the top 5 finish, so he done a fantastic job salvaging his day off what looked like a race-ending accident when he bent the, I believe it was the right rear toe link on that car, so fantastic job by them. But these 2 leaders, what a show that they put on in those closing laps.
It was quite the show, and we had shows all throughout the field here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Early, it was the mid-pack of the field that just kept the battle flowing lap after lap. Brandon 06 in the 06 machine was out front dominating the show. Makes the mistake, opens up the door. Zach Millett and Brandon Bowie kick it open to get a victory for this 35 machine, and 1st victory of the season for him. 1st victory here at Doghouse. He's going to burn it down and celebrate on the front straightaway. As Zach Millett celebrates his 1st victory, we're going to step aside and we'll be back for our post-race show so we can talk to tonight's race winner and the other drivers after tonight's finish. All right, we are back here, folks, after an amazing finish to the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval here tonight for the Shoney's Doghouse Racing Cup Series. It was, quite the finish from our top two and quite the showing from all the drivers in tonight's field here at the Doghouse Racing League. But let's go talk to a first-time winner as he had a fight on his hands. It was the 35 of Zach Millett. Let's hear from this first-time winner. Hey, Zach and Zach up in the booth. You got a copy.
Hey, man. How's it going?
It's going good, buddy. Well, I tell you what, man, congrats on your first victory here at the Doghouse Racing League and quite a fight on your hands. How you feeling after that one? And, man, take us through that battle at the end because you guys were going at it.
Oh, man, I'm a sweaty mess sitting here. Just telling Bowie the same thing. I'm dying after that battle. That was intense. I was definitely a third fastest car tonight. 6 is just on another level, hitting 18.9s race pace. That's incredible. It's definitely his race. I hate that he hit the wall and got damaged there. It's just so easy to do here. You know, the walls just come up quick, and I even slid it into turn 1 and bombed the wall myself. I was just lucky I didn't get wheel damage. But yeah, battling with Bowie there, man, it was a lot of fun. It's we're all teammates, so it's the best kind of racing. You know you're not going to get wrecked. You know you're not going to get run too hard, but you're going to battle it out right to the line. So it doesn't get much better.
Yeah, awesome performance from you tonight, Zach. Congrats on your first career win here at a Doghouse Racing League. So great job with that. And how does it kind of set your tone for the rest of the season? You know, being able to go out there and get that first win. So how does that help you going forward?
It's great. You know, I'm really pumped that I could get a win over here. I was excited to see the road course on the schedule. It sucks because I'd like to make this league every week, but my work schedule is just kind of a nightmare. So if I'm home, I jump in for sure. If I'm not here, it's because I'm stuck at work. But it's a pleasure to race these guys. I'm glad they added me, and it's awesome to be here.
Definitely great to have you too, Zach, man. Congrats on that victory. You know, I want to go back to tonight's race and ask you about, the pit strategy there. Look, you and Brandon both elected to stay out longer than Brandon Six, your other teammate. He takes tires, comes out, of course, makes that mistake, breaks that toe link. But from there, you two decide to not take tires from that point. Was it kind of trying to cover off each other? Was that the deal? Or, what was your thing? Because you were the first to come down.
I was really on the fence if I wanted to take tires or not. Usually the tires last pretty long in these next gens for whatever reason. The temperatures, once they get hot, they're hot for a long time, but the life of them actually aren't too bad. But yeah, once Brandon 2 came in and got tires and hit the wall, it was probably scared, the rest of us. So it was definitely a little slower because of the heat buildup, but I don't know. It was just more consistent, I guess. I could run, mid to high 20s. I felt like okay. I think if I came in and got tires, I could maybe flirt with the 19s or really low 20s, but it just wasn't worth the risk to me.
Definitely was a wild one, Zach. Congrats on the win once again. And before we let you get out of here, anybody want to send a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to you guys at Freaky Fast. It's awesome to go back and watch your broadcast. Do a hell of a job. Shout out to Doghouse. Big shout out to Bowie Esports. Pleasure to be on that team with these guys. They're a bunch of crazy fast guys, man. It's cool to learn something every time I run with these guys. And shout out to Track Bar Media, and shoot me a follow over on the Twitch at that is 4 guy.
Well, that was tonight's race winner here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Zach, congratulations, and we will catch you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, guys.
All right, folks, that was your race winner. Like I said, there, Zach Millett in the 35. First win here at Doghouse Racing Series. Third start, too. Very impressive stuff from that 35 car. And all 3 finishes top 5. So very consistent at that. So we'll see how his rest of his season plays out as he races part-time. But we'll move on to the second place man in points and the second place finisher in tonight's race, the 54, Brandon Bowie. Hey, Brandon, Zach up in the booth. You got a copy?
I got you, Zach.
Well, Brandon, what a fight you had on your hands tonight, man. You started back in that 12th position, and immediately missed the chaos there, got up to 5th, and then slowly but methodically worked your way into position. And next thing you know, you're fighting for the win, man. Take us through that.
Yeah, I've always learned that you gotta first finish the race before you really have a chance to really win a race. So, the goal was just to try and get to the front, and not burn up the tires in the way there, but just try to get there pretty calmly. got there, and I got to Zach, and man, he was just like we kept just mimicking each other's time. I would pick up a little bit here, he would pick up a little bit there. So it was, I could tell you, it was definitely better than Tyson fight. If you watched that last weekend, at least this was a little bit of jabbing the whole time as far as time wise. But yeah, I mean, this was it was definitely difficult just trying to make up time. I saw that he pitted, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and go run a little bit quicker lap if I can, and then come down pit road, try to take what I need, and then roll, which did technically get me second. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it was first because Six had already hit the wall. So then I just made a bonehead move, hit the curb too hard, got in the throttle too soon, and half spun it, locked it up. Thankfully, I didn't get Zach there, but tried everything to try to come back, and then hit the wall again, and then had one last hurrah there at the end to try maybe if I can spook him to kind of make a mistake or whatever and kind of get side by side with him, but couldn't make it happen. But happy for him though, man, because he's really fast and has shown it. So it was cool to see him get his first win. But another second place. So we're gonna get some more wins eventually.
Yeah, Brandon, I'm sure you'll find yourself in victory lane here soon. You started outside the top 10 tonight. I mean, it is so difficult to pick up spots at a road course, let alone 11 of them. How did you kind of do that? What kind of take us through how you picked up those spots as the race went on, and what you done to kind of put yourself in the best spot possible, starting from so far back.
Well, for me, I mean, the important thing is tires. The way how the road tires work. I mean, honestly, you don't even have to take them when you pit because they don't really wear, but they don't really heat up as quickly. So the more, and for me, the more I can keep the tires from overheating and getting too hot, the more drive off I have, the more forward bite I have. So for me, it was just I saw things happening around me, cars wrecking here, cars wrecking there. I'm just honestly just tiptoeing through it until maybe a lap or two, then I can really start going. And once I started to go, I did notice like, okay, I might actually have a chance. But I didn't have a chance when Six was still in it. I mean, he was probably 2, 3, maybe 4 tenths at times faster than I was, probably me and Zach. So unfortunate event for him to hit the wall and break a toe link or bend it. But it benefited me and Zach, and man, we put on a hell of a show. Hopefully people were watching actually enjoyed that, because that was pretty fun behind the car or behind the driver's seat. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just methodical, just with my moves and trying not to make bonehead moves like I did late in the race. I knew if I could do that, then I would at least have a chance.
Was definitely quite the show between you top two up front, Brandon. Congrats on putting on the show first off for us and bringing it home in second. You are going to gain a few points here on Brandon Six, of course, with his misfortunes there. We got 4 races left, man. Close it down just a little bit. How you feel about the championship?
I mean, Six does have a good chunk lead. I mean, some things would have to happen in order for me to really truly have a chance at it. I mean, he's just really, really good at every track we go at. So it's hard to gain that. And then when I had my misfortune, a couple of the races I had a misfortune at, if I don't have those misfortunes, then I'm probably either a couple points behind them or leading the points. So, I'm not making up excuses, just it's going to be difficult, to be completely honest with you, to kind of go and try to take it from him. But I'm not going to lay down, I'll tell you that. And I'm going to fight every race, try to win the next 4 races, and see if we can, I don't know, see if we can maybe steal one. But it's going to definitely be a challenge for sure.
Definitely is going to be fun for us to watch, Brandon, and best of luck to you in that. But before we let you get out of here and go get prepared for these next 4 races, man, anybody would like to send a shout out to?
Yeah, I gotta thank Bowie Esports. Definitely has some speed today, and they really did what they needed to do. Kind of again sucks for 6, but he did end up with a top 5. So, and Brian finished 9th, so that was a nice top 10 for the whole team. Gotta thank Gremlins Cards, EMOS. You can check them out at tinyurl.com/Gremlins Cards. And then you can use Bowie Esports 20 for 20% off as a promo code. Gotta thank Battle Beaver. Gotta thank Boosted. Thank you guys for putting on the broadcast. Gotta thank Doghouse, family, and yeah, gotta thank the man above for protecting me and not killing myself tonight.
Definitely got to do that, Brandon. Well, man, congrats on second here tonight, and best of luck for the rest of the season. We'll catch you in a few weeks, buddy.
All right, thanks, Zach.
All right, folks, that was your second place driver here tonight, Brandon Bowie. What a job by him to come from 12th to 2nd. I mean, putting on a real quiet show for us tonight. So, second place man of points, gaining some points. That's good to hear. And like he said, he's not giving up the fight. So, we'll get to see him fight through the rest of the season. But now we'll move on to the third place man tonight, the driver who kept it on track, stayed on the lead lap, and finished in the third place position. Let's talk to Jamie Horn. Hey, Jamie, it's Zach up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jamie, man, great job by you tonight, man. I mean, qualified in that 4th position. You kind of were, in that 4th position for majority of the night. We see the 06 makes a mistake, breaks his toe link, and then from there, man, you're going to put yourself in 3rd position. So how do you feel about coming out of here with a top 3 after all said and done?
I'll take it. I made a mistake on lap 1 and got into the wall and bent something in the steering. The whole race, my steering was shaking and drove really bad. So to come home 3rd, I'll take that.
Yeah, Jamie. I mean, you honestly, and I don't say this in a bad way, you flew under the radar all night. You stayed out of trouble for the most part, and just brought it home with a consistent finish. How do you take this 3rd place finish and kind of apply that going forward through the rest of your season?
I'll just keep trying to finish up top 5, and maybe eventually I finally get that win. Seems like every time I'm there, something happens, and can't quite seal that up. But running in the front every week, eventually it'll happen, and just gotta clean up some of the bad races I've had and bad luck, and just continue moving on and trying to hold that top 3 in points.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going next too, Jamie, is, holding on the top 3 in points, man. You're looking solid for that. Of course, it's very close behind you, of course, right there for a lot of the drivers. How do you feel about these next 4 races and trying to solidify that position?
Most of them I'm pretty decent at, so I mean I feel like we'll run good, and I think one of them's Talladega coming up, and I do good at that track, but I always get caught up in something somehow not of my doing. So try to find a way to stay out of it this time, hopefully.
Definitely would love to see that for yourself, Jamie, man. Well, I'll tell you what, congrats on 3rd tonight. Before we let you get out of here, anybody want to send a shout out to?
Thank y'all for everything y'all do. Y'all put on a great broadcast every week. Thanks to Daniel for everything he does with the league and all the admin. And shout out to my teammates for all their help, and my mom for watching every week. And look forward to seeing y'all in 2 weeks from now.
That it will be.
All right. Well, we'll see y'all then. Hopefully, I'll be talking from 1st place then.
Hey, we would love to see that, Jamie, man. We know you can do it. So congrats on 3rd tonight, and we will catch you in a few weeks, man.
All right. Y'all have a good night.
All right, folks. That was your 3rd place finisher, Jamie Horn. What a job he did here tonight to bring home that 3rd place. Just so consistent, keeping it on track. And like he said, after bending that suspension, it was just survival. So good job by Jamie Horn. He's going to look to close out his season on a strong point. As tonight, what a race we had on our hands here. We'll take a look at our final results here and get to see where your favorite drivers finished out the night here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval. Because, man, a road course race, it's been over a year since the Doghouse Racing League has run it, and it's been definitely super, super fun to see how these drivers attack the course tonight. But as we bring those results up, we see Millette, of course, 1st win of the career for the 35. That's a huge thing for him. So congrats to that driver. 2nd place is going to go to Brandon Bowie. with the excellent driver from the 12th position. Jamie Horn's going to be bringing it home in the 3rd position. The driver who dominated tonight, though, going to unfortunately bring it home in that 4th position. To salvage a 4th place position after everything that happened to Brendan 6, I think he'll still come out of here with somewhat upbeat. 5th's going to go to Kevin Powell. Excellent race for him. Kept it in the top 5 all night. Jeremiah Stutzman, he's going to bring it home in 6th after his epic battle with Eric Warman all night, who's going to be in 7th. 8th's going to go to Stephen Bonomo after the big spin out to start the race for himself. And 9th is going to go to Brian Dixon, with 10th place finisher Tyler Mutt is being last week's winner. And as we look through the rest of the results here, Danny, I tell you what, tonight was quite the showing for some of these drivers.
Yeah, heartbreak again for Christopher Leftwich, man. Hated to see him have that struggle that he did where he broke the toe link and it just kind of ended his race a lot earlier than I'm sure he would have wanted to. Another notable driver here is Christopher Simon, who seemed like we saw him in a battle all night long with somebody, whether it was the 7, the 9, the 94. He was always battling with somebody all night long, so he got to put on a show tonight as well. But yeah, all in all, we had some really good battles all throughout the field all night long.
We really did, Danny. It was an excellent night of road racing here at the Doghouse Racing League, and it's only going to get better here as we got 4 races left to close out the season. It is going to be really, really fun to once again crown a champion here at the Doghouse Racing Series as Brandon 6 looks to take that home, as he's got, Brandon Bowie talked about a sizable gap, but that gap can definitely be closed in. Before we get out of here, though, Danny, any final thoughts from yourself?
Yeah, we're definitely going to see, like you said, that gap close down to the point leader, Brandon 6. I don't think we're going to see anything too drastic as far as standing changes go, at least at the front part of the point standings. But I think Brandon 6 still holds a comfortable lead going into Talladega, and I think he might need it there because nothing to discredit him, but you never know how you're going to come out of that race. Looking ahead to next week, it's Talladega at best is a roll of the dice, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out with some of these drivers.
That it will be. Talladega will definitely be a roll of a dice race for us because, man, you know how super speedways play out. They're always action lurking around every single corner, so you're not going to want to miss out on none of that action. But, of course, we got to give a huge shout out also to all the sponsors again who make it happen here at the Doghouse Racing Series. Of course, the title sponsor, Shoney's. Make sure if you're in that West Virginia area, you go check out Shoney's, the All-American Kitchen. Such great food and delicious stuff they have there for sure, and friendly service. So make sure you go check out Shoney's. Of course, True Patriot Apparel and Gifts. You can maybe check them out at www.truepatriotshopUSA.com. You got SSR Designs, also buttkicker.com, and Nap Daddy Racing Design. So again, thank you to all of them who help put on the show here week in and week out at the Doghouse Racing Series. We're going to take a look at our upcoming schedule here at Freaky Fast because guess what? We're off because next week is going to be all holiday racing for us here at Freaky Fast. So like our producer said, there's nothing to show, folks. So you're going to have to wait a week. We'll be back after that, and we'll be ready for some racing action before we get into that Christmas time and get some more off time. So it's going to be a fun time here. Again, happy holidays to everybody out there. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you to all the sponsors. Congrats to Zach Millett. Thank you also to Danny Cochran for coming up in the booth, joining me here tonight. And also shout out to Sam Dyer out there because we know he's a little bit under the weather, and definitely we're hoping that he's feeling much, much better here in these coming days so we can get him back up in the booth with us. And last but not least, shout out to our producer, Robert Moore Jr., for all the work he does. But again, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a pleasure from the booth. My name is Zach Hall, and thank you all for tuning in, and stay freaky fast.